After studying this module, you shall be able to learn about planning as a function of management, its nature, and essentials of planning. Identify steps in planning and understanding various types of planning such as corporate, functional, strategic, etc. Identify variety of plans in the organization such as standing and single-use plans. Learn about the concept of management by objectives MBO and appreciate that there are many ways of creating a policy and learn about different types of policies in the organization and how important the planning is.
Planning is the determination of the future course of action to achieve the desired result. It is regarded as a decision making activity in order to achieve goals, and decision making is related with thinking of various alternatives and deciding out of various alternatives the best one to reach our goals. In other words, planning is to decide about the best course of action to be taken from all the available alternatives. Talking in terms of origination, manager decides what, how, when, and by whom it is to be done. A proposed draft of planning is prepared in advance in detail with the help of procedures, programs, policies, and budgets.
Planning is the determination of the future course of action to achieve the desired result. Planning is to decide about the best course of action to be taken from all the available alternatives. According to Heyman, planning is deciding in advance what is to be done. Let us learn about the nature of planning. Following are the basic features of planning. 1. Intellectual process. It is a mental exercise before taking any action. A manager must have a capability of extracting ideas and also anticipating in advance the impact of the many possible outcomes on the future task. Second, continuous process. Planning is a never ending activity. A manager at workplace thinks for a particular plan for a certain goal, and when it is accomplished, the planning starts for another objective and so on. Third, goal oriented. It means that there is a planning only if there are goals. To achieve goals, policy, plans, rules, procedures, etc. are laid out that involves planning. A planning would be an empty mental exercise without having any objective. Fourth, a primary function. Planning is required in every phase. Unless we plan, we cannot decide, and unless we decide, we cannot achieve targets. It is not possible to compare the targets achieved if there is no plan initially. Fifth, pervasive. Planning is all pervasive. It is required at all the levels of management, a pervasive activity covering the entire enterprise. A manager cannot be a good manager if he cannot plan. The essential characteristics of effective planning are: it must be based on clearly defined objectives, capable of integrating different activities, clearly understood by those involved in completing the targets, and must be comprehensive for the attainment of the objectives. Plan is conducted at different levels, so it is necessary that different types of plans must fit together. Their purpose, their timings should be arranged so that necessary coordination results. Plan must be economical. Check the resource availability and their effective utilization. Plan must facilitate control to check for any deviation in the actual plan. Let us now understand the basic steps for a good and successful planning. The first and foremost step in the process of planning is determination of the objectives of the enterprise, which should be specific and clear to indicate what is to be done. Second, deciding planning premise, that is, assumptions about the future, because a plan is for the future and future is uncertain. So, the assumptions made about the future need to be realistic and correctly constituted. Premises are of two types: external, which is about economy, political, and social environment, and second, internal, which is related with the rules, policies, and procedures internal to the organization. Third, the next step is the identification of various available alternatives. Fourth, then the alternatives are evaluated on the basis of cost, risk, benefit, etc. There is a need to see the best fit alternative. There may be profitable alternatives with heavy investments or a risky investment proposal with low amount of investment. Fifth, the best alternative is selected. It is always better to select more than one alternative because the selection is based on premise, which is based on the future, and future is uncertain. So, in case of change of premise, alternative may also change. After learning about the basics of planning, we must make a note that planning can be of various types depending on the need of the organization. These are: 1. Corporate planning. A planning and determination of long-term objectives of entire corporate activities, including organizing the work, people, and to sustain so as to enable to attain these objectives. Second, functional planning. A planning related with functional departments such as finance, marketing, human relation, etc. of the organization. The activities of the departments are carried out on the basis of certain plans called functional area plans. This type of planning is a part of a corporate planning. Third, strategic planning. The top management plans for the growth rate in sales, business expansion, analysis of environmental factors, starting new lines of business, etc., is a long-term plan called a strategic planning. It includes a plan related to objectives, changes in the objectives of the organization, resources available for attaining objectives, and also policy changes for achieving the desired results. Fourth, operational planning. It is a short period plan of 1 year only that takes place at lower level of management at the time of execution. Such plan is related to every different department of the organization such as production, finance, marketing, etc. Fifth, short-term planning. A planning period ranging from 6 months to 1 year. They are also called as supportive plans that help to accomplish the main objective. This is done at lower levels of management. Sixth, long-term planning. Plans covering a period of more than 3 years is a long-term planning. It takes place at top level of management only.
If we talk about strategic planning, it is a planning that defines the purpose, goals, and methods that will be used to accomplish the defined goals, and this planning identifies the gap between where we are and where we want to reach in order to analyze the possibility of various avenues through which it is possible to achieve the set targets. In strategic decision making, three questions arises. One, what do we do? Second, for whom do we do it? And how do we excel? The basic components of this planning includes a clear entity's vision, mission, values and strategies. For example, the top management plans for the growth rate in sales, business expansion, analysis of environmental factors, starting new lines of business, etc. is a long-term plan, also called as a strategic plan. It includes a plan related to objectives, changes in the objectives of the organization, resources available for attaining those objectives, and also policies changes for achieving the desired results. After the formulation of objectives, the manager in the organization can effectively plan rules, regulations, policies, procedures, and he can then only supervise, motivate, and direct the subordinates. It is only on the basis of the objectives defined, managers can control and check whether or not the desired objectives have been attained or not. Effective management is always a management by objectives, MBO. In this method, goals and activities are clearly and simply stated, which the managers and subordinates have to achieve, and these objectives would be used as a criteria for evaluating the performance of the subordinates. As results are to be evaluated in relation to the objectives, MBO is also called as management by results. The various advantages that MBO provides are unified planning, increased motivation, a basis for control, decentralization. It defines the performance of standards, improved performance due to the sense of involvement. In order to have MBO in the organization, the following steps are to be followed. One, we need to define the corporate objectives, that is the long-term objectives for the survival, growth and image of the company. Then defining sub-goals. It is defining short-term objectives keeping in view the attainment of the corporate objectives of the organization. These sub-goals are the goals of the different departments or functional areas to decide as to what they are expected to contribute in the organization. Then we need to know about the individual targets. The managers at different levels must have defined goals and it must match the qualification of the manager so as to get the desired result. Then we need to know about the periodical performance review. It is important to review the progress of the employees periodically, and feedback should also be given to the person concerned so as to motivate him to accomplish the corporate objective.
Let's now highlight the fact that there are variety of plans. These are 1. Standing or repeated plans. Second, single use plans. Standing plans. These plans are formulated by top management once for all, for repeated use or to be used again and again. It includes plans related to objectives, procedures, methods, rules, regulations, and strategies. They have been explained further. Objectives. Objectives are the end result towards which all the activities are directed. They are also described as the end points or basis of planning. It is only on the basis of objectives defined managers can control and check whether or not the desired objectives have been attained or not. Effective management is always management by objectives, MBO.
The basic principles or essentials of a good policies are stated as follows. It must be simple and easy to understand, clear and definite. Policies must always, must be in a written form, though it can be oral also. Clear communication of policy to the followers who are going to implement it is must. Societal and national interest must not be affected by the policy. The policy must be prepared after incorporating suggestions from the participants who are going to implement it. The policy must be flexible in nature with high degree of permanency. Adherence to the government rules, regulations and policies must be taken care of before finalizing the corporate policy. Review of policy periodically is also must to take into consideration the external environmental threats and opportunities. Policies must be different from the rules and procedures of the organization.
Policies. Policies are the guidelines for the members of the organization for the performance of their task. These are regarded as general statements for those who are involved in decision making. Policies are the guide to thinking, can be written or verbal, and created by top management for the attainment of the objectives.
The policies are created in the organization by the top management, and the area of policy formulation is as varied as many activities of the enterprise. Policies can be emerged in several commonly recognized ways, such as on the basis of broadness, origination, expression, and freedom. All these policies, like if we say on the basis of broadness, then the policies are created by the top management for the entire organization. They may be related to expansion, diversification, and they are overall policies or broad policies of the organization. Then we can have functional policies, like these policies are developed at different functional levels, departments of the organization, such as marketing policy, finance policy, HR policy, research and development policies, and they are related to a particular function of the department. Then we can say that there could be a origin as a basis of creating a policies. These policies are originated by managers at managerial hierarchy. Once the broad policies are developed by the top management, which acts as a guide for various policies covering smaller areas of activities which are originated by the various managers lower down in the managerial hierarchy. These policies will definitely be achieving the corporate policies set by the top management. Now, these policies are appealed policies. They are created on the basis of the appeal made by the subordinates in the organization. In exceptional case, such as where subordinates cannot or they are not in a position to take a decision, an appeal to his superior for the decision to solve the current problem. The decision which is taken by the superior then sets a policy and is known as an appealed policy. Then we have imposed policy. When pressure is exerted or imposed from the forces such as government rules, business houses, trade unions, labor laws, then such policies are created. Force here cannot be avoided, and hence there is a need to formulate the policy which is called as imposed policy. If we say on the basis of expression, then the policies could be written, oral or implied policies. These are recorded as, if we say written policies, then these policies are recorded in writing to be essentially and explicitly stated to the employees of the organization. Policies should be clearly expressed and preferably in writing. Then oral policies are policies not in writing and they are spoken out to the users, and they are called as verbal or oral policies. Implied policies. These policies are neither in writing nor stated verbally. They may change from situation to situation and may be only watching the behavior of the subordinates. Managers of the organizations, they can decide that the presence of imposed policies may be ascertained. On the basis of freedom, the policies on this basis includes general policies. These policies are common policies for all and provide more freedom to the subordinates, such as goals can be sold on credit as sales policy. Then we can have specific policies. They are created for certain purposes and restrictive in nature and do not provide any freedom from the subordinates.
Procedures. Procedure is a sequence of steps to attain the objectives. They are specific, unlike policies, which are broad guidelines. Procedures are guide to action, not a guide to thinking. Procedures are the chronological sequence in different areas to implement policies. Policies are directed towards objectives broadly, whereas procedures are set in different areas in the form of steps to attain the goals. Rules. Rules are specific type of standing plans. A rule does not specify the sequence of steps to be followed, though it is a guide to action. It is definite in nature, that is, it must provide a definite action to be taken or not taken in specific situation. Rules do not follow any procedure, rather, they provide uniformity in action and everyone has to follow it. It also provides for rationality in the behavior of the manager. Strategy. A strategy is a plan of action or unified or integrated plan in order to achieve goals and objectives of the organization. It is a broad plan for bridging the gap between where the organization is today and where it has to go in the future. Strategy is regarded as a long-term objective that provides direction, leads to coordination, control, and optimum utilization of resources. It helps in facing the challenges of the dynamic environment that is comprised of threats and opportunities. After discussing about standing use plans, let us now move on to the single use plans. These plans are used for specific objective and time period only. Once the objective is achieved, plan lapses. These can in the form of budget, programs, and projects. Budget. A budget is prepared for the fixed time period and is a statistical estimate for future requirements. Budget can be a master budget. It can be related to production, sales, purchase, etc. The budget may be stated in terms of time, material, money, or other units necessary to perform the work. Program. A program is a plan within a broad or bigger plan for attaining the enterprise goal for a specific situation only. Once the goal is achieved for a specific task, it is not used again. For example, an expansion program for paper mill, which calls for preparing budget, creates policies, procedures, rules, etc. for this purpose. Once the purpose for expansion is fulfilled, the specific plans made for this purpose will be given up. Projects. A project is a part of the general program. It is directed towards the attainment of its objective. For example, a project of building a dam, launching a new product in the market, etc. A project manager is responsible for handling the entire project, such as formulation of programs, policies, budget, and setting up of ad hoc administrative setup for the completion of the project. Finally, we shall discuss the importance of planning. Planning contributes in the following ways. It focuses attention on objectives which need to be clearly defined, to all those in the organization who are to implement it. It aims at utilizing optimally all the resources, human and non human resources of the organization. Future uncertainties are reduced to great extent, though cannot be fully eliminated due to external environment impositions. Thus, planning helps in minimizing the risk of uncertainty to great extent. Efficiency at workplace also increases when everything moves in a planned way that accomplishes the organization goals within the available resources. Coordination at hierarchical level and in all the departments increases because functional area planning is done that has an ultimate aim of fulfilling the corporate objectives. Planning facilitates the decision-making process to select best alternative for the future out of the various alternatives available. Planning leads to control the performance on the basis of what is expected. Let us now summarize what we have learnt in this module. Planning is the determination of the future course of action to achieve the desired result. It is regarded as a decision-making activity in order to achieve goals, and decision-making is related with thinking of various alternatives and deciding out of the various alternatives the best one to reach to our goals. Planning is an intellectual, continuous, goal-oriented, and all-pervasive and primary function. Planning must be based on clearly defined objectives capable of integrating different activities. The planning encompasses certain steps such as determination of objectives, deciding planning premise, finding and evaluating various alternatives, and selection of the best alternative. Planning can be of different types such as corporate planning, functional planning, strategies, operational, short-term and long-term planning. There are varieties of plans such as standing and single-use plans. Standing plans include objectives, policies, procedures, rules, and strategy. Single-use plans include budgets, programs, and projects. Effective management is management by objectives. Goals and activities are clearly and simply stated, which the manager and the subordinates have to achieve, and also these objectives would be used as a criteria for evaluating the performance of the subordinates. Policies are the guidelines for the members of the organization for the performance of their task. These are regarded as general statements for those who are involved in decision making. Policies on the basis of broadness include organizational policies and functional policies. Policies on the basis of origination are appealed and imposed policies. Expression-based policies are written or verbal policies and implied policies.